Hi everyone, I am Grace from Gardening for Joy. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you my 2023 Christmas cards designs. But more importantly, what I'm going to share with you are a few tricks for making the cards. Some tricks that I've learned after making well over 100 cards. Now, I didn't make 100 Christmas cards, but what I did make was a variety of cards using dried pressed flowers. And why did I make them? Well, I opened a shop on Etsy where I now sell some of my different pressed flower artwork. And I put the link to my Etsy shop if you're curious in the description of this video. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll share with you the designs and I'll share with you the tricks that I learned along the way. So I'm just positioning the camera kind of down at my desktop. So first, let me share with you the designs. First design is what I call a Christmas ball, a ball that you might hang on the tree. Really pretty. I think it came out really nice. Second design is just a more traditional Christmas tree. Again, I just love the Christmas tree, really pretty. The third is a wreath. Again, simple, but really very pretty. And last is what I call a swag. This is the design that I'm actually going to walk through and share some of the tips that I've learned along the way. So we'll spend more time talking about the swag design. So let me just talk about first the plant material that I use, because I only use 3 pieces of plant material. The first piece is this white cedar pine type of tree, right? It's a type of arborvitae. Dries really nicely. I probably dried it beginning in September. I used my wooden flower press to do it, and it really worked out fine. I left it in there 3 or 4 weeks, and it came out really nicely. So that's the first piece of plant material. The second piece of plant material that I used were the individual flowers from a verbena plant. And if you know what a verbena looks like, it's really a cluster of flowers. So here's a cluster that I dried out with the individual flowers. But the other thing that I did was I pulled off those individual flowers and dried each one independently. So that's the second piece of plant material that I used, was a verbena. And then the third piece of plant material that I used were the individual petals from a zinnia flower. So I just gently pulled off each one of these petals around the center core to use in the designs, and you'll see how I use those zinnia petals as we go along. So pretty easy, pretty basic, 3 pieces of plant material that I used. We'll just move them out of the way. All right. So let me talk about the first tip I'm going to share with you is the use of a template. So for each of my designs, the first thing I did was I created a template. Now I did these in very light pencil, so you might be able to see them, but they're not that great. Not that clear. There's the Christmas tree template. And here is my swag template. Again, not really, not so easy to see, but the important news is not seeing it. The important news is a template. And the template does 2 things for me. One, it makes sure I'm consistent. So I want my cards to be consistent, because especially if you're going to try to sell your cards, your pattern should be consistent across the cards that you're selling. So it helps with consistency. The other thing that I do now is, as opposed to finding my plant material and building my cards simultaneously, first I build the design on the template, and then I transfer it to the card. So again, just helps with consistency. So tip 1, I find, is develop a template that you can then consistently use over and over again. So the next tip I'll mention, and I think I've mentioned this in other videos, and I can't stress it enough, is measurement. For your designs, you really want your design, first of all, you want it centered in the card, and then you want it somewhat equidistant from the top and the bottom of the card, depending on really what you're trying to accomplish. And so the only way you're going to do that is, for every single card you make, is to measure. So let me talk a little bit about the design of the swag and where the key measurements are. So the first thing I decided was that this long piece of the swag was going to be a 3-inch piece. And again, I can control that, right? I can cut the individual pieces of the branch to whatever length that I want them to be. So I wanted this piece to be a consistent 3-inch length. It didn't matter so much what the length of these ones were, as long as they were shorter than that centerpiece. So first measurement was, how long is that centerpiece? Because what that told me is it gave me a guide to how far I want it to be from the bottom and also how far I want it to be from the top. Now, because I was putting a bow on the top here, I wanted to leave more room at the top than I left at the bottom. So I think I left about 1 3/4 inches at the bottom here and probably 2 3/4 at the top to account for the bow. So again, just kind of a strategic, purposeful decision that I made about where I was going to start that center branch. The other thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to find the center of the card, and I wanted to make sure that that first branch was right smack in the center of the card. And so I measured that, and I'll show you that in a second. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how I lay out the template, right? And I have my material pieces that I've chosen over here. So I have my 3-inch piece, which is going to go on my template, right? Now, of course, on your template, it doesn't have to be extremely perfect, but most importantly, that you have all your pieces picked out. I've got a piece of my side swag and the other side of the swag. Then for this one, I use the individual petals of the zinnia, and I'm going to place them wherever I think they look nice. And I might change that when I'm actually building the card, but at least I've got those petals out, and I know roughly where I'm going to place them. Okay, so I've got my template built. Perfect. So I'm ready to get started, except now I need to measure on my card, right? So I've got my card here. My card is 5 inches wide, right, by 7 inches. So it's a 5 by 7. And so I mentioned to you that I want to be about 2 3/4 inches from the top. So I'm going to measure that. I love this Papermate pencil for the work I do. It's a super fine tip on it. But most importantly, what I love about it is the eraser. The eraser really erases any pencil marks, any mistakes I might make without leaving any kind of a smudge. So I just like these pencils. So I'm going to measure about I'm going to do about 2.5. I'm going to put my little, I'll do 2 3/4 and put my dot. And then I'm going to measure, where exactly 2.5 is, and I'm going to kind of sync those two up. So that's about there. And then if I have any extraneous dots, I'm just going to move them away. So measured, I knew how much I wanted to come down from the top. I knew what my bottom measurements were. And the reason, and I also knew that my middle swag was about 3 inches long. So now I'm going to, I blew away a couple of my petals here. Let's get those back. So now I'm ready to start the gluing process. I've got my template, I've got my starting point, and this is where my next tip comes in. So I used to use a little bowl to put my glue in, and that worked fine. But I found myself constantly wasting glue. So now what I do is I use either a piece of tinfoil, a piece of wax paper, a piece of parchment paper, something that doesn't leak through, to put the glue on. So here I'm just going to use a little piece of tinfoil. And then I always use Mod Podge matte finish glue. So I'll use that again. What I used to do, and you might have seen this in other videos, is I would just take and I would just pour glue onto the dish or whatever it was that I was using. But I do something different now. Now what I found to waste less glue is I use a measuring spoon to kind of take out some glue. And what that helps me with is when I used to pour the glue, right, I used to get dried glue all around the top of the glue container, which was a little bit annoying. And while I could pull it off, it was just annoying that it was there. So now, and I have just a 1/4-inch teaspoon. So I'm just going to take out, and that'll be like a lot of glue anyway, right? So I'm just going to let it kind of drip a little bit till it drips down, right? And then at a strategic point, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to put it on my tinfoil. And you can see it's still pretty lot of glue, right? So normally I might let it, drip a little longer, but just for purposes of the video, I do try to wipe it out, after I do it. I'm gonna wash it again also, but just so not too much glue dries in there, I do try to wash it out. So again, I found this very helpful so that I don't waste so much glue. So I've got my glue, I've got my card, I got my plant material, I got my template. So the other change that I've made is I don't use a brush anymore to apply the glue, particularly when I'm doing card making. Now I just use a toothpick, because the thing about gluing plant material on a card is you don't need much glue. And if you use too much glue, you're going to have glue smudges on your card. And while it dries clear, if you look at the card closely, you'll see a glue smudge. And that is the worst thing that can happen, in my opinion, on a card. I searched the internet. I tried to look for how to get rid of glue spots on cards. I was directed to buy this, I don't know what it is. It's kind of like a spongy plastic type of material where you just kind of rub on the card. Well, it doesn't work for the Mod Podge, or at least it doesn't work when the glue is dry. It may work a little bit if you get wet glue somewhere and you want to wipe it off. Does not work. So if anybody has any ideas about how to get dried glue off, certainly leave me a comment, because I'd love to know. But at least this thing does not work. So the moral is, you want to apply as little glue as possible when you're doing this. So let's just take a look here at how I do this. So I've got my design. I'm going to take the first piece, right? I'm going to turn it upside down. Going to take my toothpick, and then I'm just going to start to apply what I call little glue dots all the way down the plant material. I'm going to apply it along this side. These are just little tiny glue dots, right? So you need some glue, right? You just don't need a lot of glue, and you don't want it to gush out from under any of the little leaflets that are kind of on here. Now, what I'll do sometimes also to be super sure that I don't get any smudges is I just turn it over, let the paper towel absorb a little bit. So now I come over to my card, and I'm going to look for my center dot, and I'm going to put my piece of plant material right there. A lot of times what I've been doing is I've been using my tweezers. I've got a flat section on my tweezers, right, to hold it down. Because sometimes your fingers get a little sticky with glue, and when you lift your fingers up, you may lift up plant material with them. Usually about 15-20 seconds is what I try to do to hold this down. And that's about all you need. And then I just check, make sure I don't have any little glue smudges. And then I move on to the next piece. Again, turn it upside down. Same thing, just put my little glue dots all along here. Toothpick is great for doing this. Gets the least amount of glue on here, but enough that it's enough to hold the plant material. Again, I take it, I turn it upside down, takes maybe a little bit off of it, And then I come and I just match it right back up to my center point. Use my tweezers to hold it down for about 15 seconds. Lift it up, check again, make sure there's no period, get my last piece. Put my glue dots on again. Again, the toothpick is just great for this, right? Puts just a little bit of glue, but enough to hold the plant material in place. And most importantly, like I said, enough that you don't have any glue splotches anywhere. Line it up. Hold it down. Again, I usually wait about 15 seconds to get that piece down there. Take a look at it. So there I've got my 3 pieces glued down. Now I will apply what I call my ornaments, right? Which are really the individual petals of the zinnia plant. Again, I will turn this upside down, maybe get a little extra glue off of it onto my paper towel. I do use a paper towel here. And then just come and see where I want to place it. Everything is about 15 seconds. Again, if I can use my the bottom of my tweezers, I tend to do that because it doesn't stick as much. Get my next petal. And you can see how having everything right available to you makes the actual creation of the design a lot easier, right? So having these pieces assembled ahead of time on your template, at least I found, makes it really, really easy. And then finally, the last piece. So again, just going to turn that upside down. And let's see, I think I'll just put it right on the end there, huh? So there it is. The design is done, except for, of course, I have to add the bow at the top, right? Very pretty. So the next thing that I do is I have this this gold Pentel pen. And this is where I'm going to just draw my line. I'm going to get my ruler. I'm going to make sure that my edge is smooth. This is a really old ruler, and I found that it had some glue bumps on it, which was a little annoying. That ended up making my line go a little jiggity on one of my cards. So now I just kind of make sure I got a smooth line there. And then I just draw my gold line. Really pretty, right? And then the last thing I do now, I'm not going to sit here and actually make the bow. I figured I have one, and I'll just glue it on for you. But just 2 loops, right? But with the bow, what I try to do is, again, I'm going to use minimal glue, certainly at the little knot in the back. And then I put a few glue dots on each of the little ribbons in the back, and then each of the little ribbons going down. Use my tweezers again, turn it over, pick it up, kind of center it somewhere, but make sure you're not moving it too much, because again, what you want to avoid is any extra little glue spots anywhere on your card. It really just, to me, just takes away from the whole card when that occurs. And I can see a little spot there, and I can see a little spot there. So if you can get these glue spots before they dry, that's perfect. So double check each time you dry a piece. And there you have it. There's the card. Isn't that pretty? So pretty. So let's just review a couple of the tips, right? Have a template. assemble your design on the template before you glue it on your card. Measuring is super important, right? Understand where you want your design to sit on the card and then measure each and every time. Last thing is, I tend to use now a measuring spoon to take the glue out of my container and use a piece of tinfoil, wax paper, parchment paper, anything that doesn't leak through is good, but you just need a little bit of glue. It helps me not be so wasteful. And then finally, a toothpick, right? This is great for applying, a little bit amount of glue to your plant material. And in card making, that's what you want, because you do not want any smudges on your card, because that really does not make them look very pretty. What else can I tell you? So, in the template for the Christmas tree, what I needed to decide is how long I wanted the bottom of the tree. And so I made the bottom of the tree 3 inches. Then again, I found the center of the card. I wanted it about equidistant on the top and the bottom. I found the center, which was 2.5 inches, right? We know that on a 5. And then I just drew my lines. And by having this template, then it allowed me to get my plant material and to build my card design, off the plant material, right? So I would, get a piece that piece isn't 3.5 inches, Again, when I do this, I'm cutting, I'm doing, but anyway, let's assume that's 3.5 inches. I would have that. I would build my next row of using the individual petals, right, from the zinnia, and then I would use, another piece. But that triangle design on the template helped to each piece of this be the correct size without me having to draw a triangle on the card. I could just transfer from the template to the card, and that was really helpful. As far as the ornament and the wreath, I just used the lid of a mason jar. This is a pint mason jar, and it's about 3 inches. It makes a 3-inch circle, which for me was perfect, for my card. So my template has the 3 inches, and then I go around that 3 inches with the different pieces of the plant material. You can see I tried to have the leaf pieces all pointing in the same direction as you went to the top. And then I use, 3, 6, I used 8 little flowers around the size of it, right, based on the 3-inch diameter. And then, a similar process for this card. What I did with this one is I used the individual zinnia petals to make kind of half flowers around the circle, and then a complete flower, if you will, in the middle. And then I just used little pieces of the white cedar to try to form some kind of almost like a stained glass look on the ornament. So those are the designs. So that is it. I know that was a little bit long, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm probably going to write a blog post where I'll put, more information about some of the materials I use, so you can refer to that. And I'll put the link in the description of the video. So I hope you have a great day, and thank you for joining.